from yesterday's topic of music structure and things like that, I thought I'd do a sort of follow-up session on actual audio editing. Now, as we sort of discussed yesterday, Audacity is probably the easiest software program to use for most people. It isn't necessarily the best with all the bells and whistles, but we don't necessarily need them all either, really. At the end of the day, as we discussed yesterday, we only want to sort of edit down songs if we want to, shorten the time or take out sections that we don't like, or maybe edit out if there's a swear word in it, but we don't want that broadcast, etc. You can, chop out those little things. So I just thought I'd do a bit of a demonstration on how to sort of do some of these sort of fairly basic edits and cuts, etc. And just so you can sort of get a bit of a feel of, have a go at yourself. And by all means, if you have any questions, please ask. And if it's still a bit all over the top of your head, as I said, my offer still stands for all ACL members. If they want a hand in getting some audio edited for their sequences at the end of the year, I'm more than happy to help out and do them for you. So, Audacity. This is what it looks like. So let's go in and open a file. So this is Shakin' Stevens. Merry Christmas, everyone. So we were talking about bars and beats yesterday and how that sort of lines up with xLights. It's a bit hard to see that in this representation in this type of program, because it doesn't necessarily know where all the bars and beats are at first glance. You can, I'm pretty sure Audacity does have the ability to export that data, because I think previously, before xLights had that built in, what you would do is you'd actually extract that. You could analyze it here in Audacity, extract that information out, and then import it into xLights. Now it's kind of all bundled in together. So I won't necessarily go through that step, but the main sort of section of here is working out, like we were talking about yesterday, the structure of the songs. Where's the intro, where's the chorus, where's the verses, etc. To then sort of work out where it is you actually want to do your edits. So this example obviously starts off with a nice slow intro. Snow is falling all around me. So while you're listening to the songs, you might start to picture in your head, what do I want to do on my display in this section? And what sort of, you want to get really artistic, you can sort of think about what sort of colours and patterns and effects you want to do on your house. To me, personally, when I think of sort of slower, lower kind of sections such as this one, is this intro, blues come to mind, blue colours, and slow moving kind of stuff. Nothing too zippy and fancy. So if I was doing this song, I would probably do a whole house effect, slow windmill or pinwheel kind of in sort of blues and lighter sort of colours. But then once you get up to the start of the verse, those two beats, that could maybe be a bit flash on the whole house, for example. And then you're getting into the main verse. Now you can kind of see here that the audio, the WAV file, isn't quite as thick or as heavy, and you can kind of tell that the music, or in this case the vocals, the singing, has actually dropped away a bit. Then when it ramps back up again, it's almost a bit of a visual clue as to there's a change in the song. And in this instance, it's a bit of a key change, and it kind of goes into a pre-chorus or secondary verse. And at that change, when you're sequencing on your show, that might be where you change up an effect and do something a little bit different to sort of draw a bit more activity. You might only light up certain elements to sort of draw the viewer's eyes, etc. But as far as the audio editing part of it is concerned, you might not even want this entire first front section at all. You might want to go from here and just go straight into there. So how do we do that? Because this song goes for 3.5 minutes, give or take. That might be a bit too long for your show. So you might want to cut it down 30 seconds to a minute or so. So the real easy thing to do is, if we don't want to do this section, is you've got your zoom in controls here. So wherever you place the cursor, when you're clicking on the zoom, it's going to zoom right the way in to see those wave files. And I'm pretty sure. Zooming in enough, you can see the individual beats. That's the actual jingles there. I think somewhere here there's a loop. I'm not an expert in this software. But that's 4 beats, 1 bar, just of the jingling bells. But, so that's kind of where I want to stop it. Right there. So I don't want this bit. So I've left my cursor here, where I want to start cutting it. There is what I want to end it. If I hold, hopefully I get this right, Shift and click as well, that highlights that section. And I should be able to hit delete and it's gone. So now we've just got rid of that verse. Merry Christmas, everyone. We're gonna have... So it's as simple as that, but the beauty of editing these files in digital is we haven't actually changed the original file yet. All this is being done on memory. So until you hit save, that is a permanent save. You can't undo that again. So my recommendation is, first thing you do is save as. So in this, oh, that's a good point. In this program, it says it'll save it as a project. And a little warning kind of gives you a bit more info. Save project is for an Audacity project, not an audio file. So what you're doing is you're not actually saving or changing the original audio file. This is just a file that this program uses to work around in. Is remaining intact at the moment, yep. If you want to actually save this as your audio file in Audacity, what you need to do is you need to export this, and it gives you actually a couple of different options as well. So MP3 being the most popular, and that's what xLights will use, for example. Wave files are, MP3 files are kind of compressed audio files. So the sound quality is a little bit less, but to the human ear and what we're listening to on our phones, computers and things like that, you're probably not really going to notice. But wave files are more, there's a lot more data involved in the audio, and it's not compressed at all. But what this won't be able to do is if this is an MP3 file, which it was originally, I can export this as a wave file, but it's not necessarily going to make it better quality. You can't sort of, once it's been compressed as an MP3, you can't extract it again, so to speak, to make it a better quality. As I said, I didn't necessarily have a massive plan of what to show you, but if you've got any other questions around what sort of other techniques or how to do other things for editing, by all means shout them out. but essentially the main reason for edits that I would do for people is, as I just did then, cutting out a section or maybe even copying it and pasting it back in again to extend it. If you wanted it to be longer, or you can even rearrange it. Yep.
Is there any way to import multiple files and then get it to normalize the volume so they're all roughly the same volume in Audacity? Or do you need to use an external program for that? Because when you play them, obviously some tracks are going to be louder than others, and then it can annoy neighbours or whatever.
So in the effect menu, you've got, obviously, a list of preset effects. Amplify will obviously allow you to adjust the overall volume of either the section or the entire file that you've done. Equalization is kind of like the old school 3 or 5 band graphic equalizers used to have, the bass, the mid and the treble, that kind of thing. Fade in, fade out are pretty obvious. Normalize.
I think what I ended up doing before was using a different program again. I just found it on the internet, and you select multiple tracks. It obviously analyzes them all, and it adjusts what it thinks that the nominal volume between them all is. It might amplify a couple and obviously quieten some other ones down to make them all sort of what it thinks is similar. And then I think I adjusted it from there because some actually sound louder than what the program thinks they do.
Does it load it into sort of a view like this where you get to see them, or is it just a case of select these files and make them all? Yeah,
I think you just select the files and it tells you which ones it's going to amplify by so much percentage and which ones it's going to quiet by so many percentage. That was some other program, I can't remember what it was called now, but I just wondering if you could do it all in one program, preferably. Would make it easier for people. Possibly.
It can. I mean, Audacity, you can do multiple tracks. So you can put multiple tracks in here and have them all together, and then try to balance them out. Again, I'm not an expert in this program, but the normalize function in this program in particular, like if I had nothing selected, then when I went to do the normalize, you need to select audio. So. What this tells you is normalize maximum amplitude. So what it's saying is -1 dB, decibels, basically saying that the peak that it will try and bring everything up to will be no more than 1 decibel flat. Anything above that, I mean, you can make it 10 if you really wanted to. Chances are that, well, it can't. It will let you, it's maximum 0, right? Because it physically will prevent you from clipping. So anything that goes above what's called 0 dB is effectively going to be clipping or distortion. That's when the red lights come on, mixers and things like that. And that's when it sounds like really harsh and crunchy and hard to, it's not a pleasant sound. So a safe way to do it would be, as I recommended, 1. The chances are this is probably already, so if I put the mouse there, that's where it was before. And it really hasn't changed very much at all. You'll find that most songs will be normalized, but you're right, depending on the source of where you're getting them from, when they were recorded as well, that is a way to go through and try to equal them out as best as possible. For this program, it would be 1 at a time, absolutely. It sounds like that program that you used before will probably be easier if you had a bunch of songs. What I would probably do in that instance is I would come in here, do my edits. I've shortened that, I've extended that, I've taken that out, whatever I needed to do, saved my version, onto the next song that I want to do, same thing again. Then I'd chuck all those songs into that program that you found and go normalize all these, because when I was messing around with things, I might have done some fade ins and fade outs, or I might not even like this section. It might actually be too soft, right? So even though we just normalize this entire file, this part is still quite low in volume compared to when everything cranks in. So normalizing will take the entire, in this example we just did, by selecting the entire file, it'll kind of find what is the average or the peak out of all that and bring it up to that level as a percentage. But if I still think that this front section is too soft, I can come in here and the amplify is where you can adjust up or down. So negative obviously making it smaller, and then positive numbers making it larger. Bring these up or down. That's made it louder, but it might be unbearable.
Merry Christmas, everyone. We're gonna have...
If you don't like it, undo it. There's other effects in here if you wanted to. Say we didn't want this start section. So I've cut out this verse, but I still think this intro is a bit too long and boring. So I might get rid of that first bit, start it sort of around here. Rather than just go, snow is falling, just make it sound a little bit nicer. And we'll fade in that sort of microsecond before it. Get rid of that.
Snow is falling.
Just save myself 10-15 seconds on the sequence. Just little things like that can just sort of, especially if you don't want to have full songs all the time and people might be getting bored or whatever, this is just doing little trims and edits like that can really help sort of speed up the momentum of your display. Same thing if this is dragging on a bit too much, highlight it, fade it out. You can start doing the last two beats. What happens if we echo on that? Depending on how much you've selected. So I don't know if you heard the difference then. It's quite what we call dry, but when you put a reverb on it, and I'll make it really obvious. So that reverb is kind of like you're in a cave somewhere and you're just hearing it sort of fading out. So it's got some cool sort of effects built in, but you can play around with it as much as you like. You're not, you're not damaging or making any changes to the original file. You're just doing this in this particular project, meaning the original file is still fine. Once you're finished with everything and you're happy with it, then you can export it as an MP3 file. The standard settings that are here will be sufficient for what we'd want to do it. This computer hasn't got the codecs to convert it to MP3. But in a perfect world, you would have those installed on your computer, and then doing that export would save that file as MP3 format. Then you'd put that in your show folder, then you can put it into xLights, and then you can sequence away to your heart's content. And then if you're using, for example, the Falcon software in your Pi to run your show, you put the MP3 up, you put the FVCQ file, and away you go.
I'll get another question. If you're stupid and, well, like I say, I'm stupid, and I've already sequenced some songs, and say they run on a little bit too much at the end, and because I've already sequenced them, I want to cut them off now. Can I edit the files, save them as the same file name or whatever is involved with that, and then get xLights to somehow cut off the end of it, or however that works? Or can you just save it in xLights, save the waveform as part of it? Or
Yes and no. Yeah, you can change the file.
Yeah, but what happens is there's all the timing marks will then shift. So say your track goes for 3 minutes, but you're cutting it down to 2.5 minutes. How does xLights handle that?
Let's do a live example, shall we?
Because I reckon I've got a few tracks where it just sort of just runs on a bit, and there's nothing obviously happening because there's no beat. It's just the song just fades out to nothing for like 20 seconds or something for some reason, and there's nothing happening because there's no beat or anything. So, but because it's already sequenced, I just didn't know how to handle it.
So you're saying if you cut down the audio file, for example?
Yeah, make it shorter.
Alright, so here's an example where... Oh, I haven't used that for yet. Sorry. I clearly haven't got the latest up there. Alright, so what I've done is I've just put a couple of effects and I've lined up the timing marks to be sort of where those kind of changes in the song were, right? The original intro and then when it starts, and then this section in here I'll put in another effect too. And
I guess if you go back to Audacity and cut out that butterfly bit.
So now, if I went in and... Oh, this one will let me save the MP3 file.
Just save it as a wave.
xLights read waves. I'll attempt to answer my own question. Sequence settings. So up here you can change the media. So now... Right, so there's our shortened song. Right, so this is the edited version. So, in answer to your question, yes, you can put in an edited file. Will your markings line up though? No. They will stay exactly as it is. The sequence itself looks like it will finish, because this is a music sequence, the overall sequence is going to finish here. Even though our timing marks go out here, there's no effects in, there's no issues, but I dare say if I was to put an effect in here, it would probably come up in there saying there's an effect that goes longer than what the actual sequence does.
So you're pretty much okay if you take out the end of the song, but if you take out something near the beginning, like a long intro, then you have to change
if,
like
if
everything.
You only want to, if we trimmed like this ending, for example, so that it finished here, yeah, of course, you can bring your timing mark back or get rid of that last effect that was in there and do that, that's fine. But anything prior to that, everything's just going to shift across. I guess the lesson there is make sure you're happy with the length of the audio file that you want to work with before starting the sequencing, really. I mean, if you wanted to do an edit, but it doesn't change the overall time length of the song, you can obviously swap them in and out. And again, those timing marks should pretty much stay the same and be no issue. The only difference there is if you took a chorus, which is 4 bars from here, and replaced it over in the verse, the timing might be the same, but the effects that you wanted aren't necessarily going to swap over as well. You would still need to change them over, of course.
You were saying something about having a song without a swear word and take a swear word out, or can you do that in Audacity easily?
So let's pretend the word kiss. let's pretend that's a naughty word. I mean, the deleting it out is easy, but then it sounds weird, right? Sounds like the record skipping. So that's probably not ideal. So, I mean, you could just mute it out altogether.
Is that just on the vocal track itself, or the?
You'll be doing it to the entire file, yeah. So if you wanted to remove vocals specifically, audio files that we get are exactly as you see, 2 channels, a left one and a right one. Everything's obviously been pre-mixed in the studio. The only way you'll be able to isolate that is you got access to the original and do it all, which we don't. There are some ways that you can sort of try and do it. I'm not sure. You could try noise reduction to it. Well, yeah, so just a few seconds of just noise so it knows what to filter out. So in this example, it said a few seconds. I don't even know if it's long enough for this to work. But you're right. Generally speaking, noise reduction is to sort of get rid of clicks and pops and stuff if something was recorded from vinyl, for example.
But the only thing you can do with an audio track, with a stereo track, given that the vocal is often not in stereo, it's in mono, often what you can do is take the left track, invert it and superimpose it on the right track, and that'll often take out the vocal, but it depends on how it's being recorded.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I'm not sure whether you can do that, but you might be able to.
Yeah, so yeah, there's a couple of ways that you can try and faux remove vocals.
Yeah.
That is definitely one of them, but it is dependent on the accuracy of whether those vocals or that track is dead center. Because you're right, these WAV files and sound in general is just all peaks and troughs, right? So lower bass notes, they've got longer squiggles, if you like. High frequency stuff is like, it's exactly the same thing, but really, really, really tiny ones. And what you can do is, to cancel out a sound, whatever the height of, I keep pointing to the screen, whatever the height of this peak is, if you apply the exact frequency in the opposite direction, in the negative, on the other side, that will cancel that out, you're right. So doing the left and right copy, I don't know if this will do it or not, is one way. A variation on that is if you can find the a cappella or the isolated vocal track only, and if you look around on YouTube, there are actually a few that you might be lucky enough to find. What you can do is, similar sort of thing, copy that and say, flip that inverted, and then apply that over the top of that, and then that'll take out those as well. But because you're only wanting to do that for 1 or 2 words, it's a bit of a long-winded kind of way to do it. In this example, I would probably just try and mask it with... So that noise reduction... The noise reduction gets a noise profile. So what that does is it's analysed this selected piece of audio and it's found all those specific frequencies that's in there. And now, with that in mind, you tell it how much of that frequency to take out of that section. The more you apply it, though, the less you're going to hear. So you might as well even just reduce the volume in the first place.
Another technique,
right?
which is more brute force, is to just copy and paste a section from somewhere else in the song over the bit that you've muted out.
Yeah, so I might even grab that, control, and paste it there. This is very, very rough. What I did was I copied the beat before it, pasted it again so it kind of loops, and then deleted the line of the word. So the overall length of time is still sort of the same, but we've substituted this kiss word with the beat that was before it. It'll sound pretty average, but... So if I'd zoomed in there properly and did it and made it a bit smoother, it might not sound as bad.
It's worth pointing out.
If you find a beat or something that would sound all right, substitute it in there. Absolutely, that's another way I've done it before.
It's worth pointing out, if you're doing things that are a bit complicated like that, you're better off working in a multi-track mode. That way you can line things up on another track. You can slide them backwards and forwards. If you're doing any complicated cuts on your song, I find it easier to leave the original track there to cut from, and paste what I want onto a separate track.
Yep.
So it's worth looking at the adding additional tracks. I mean, I've done it with half a dozen extra tracks at times. Just
Yep.
To get,
in Audacity as well.
Yes. Yeah.
How does one do that?
You can just add a track somewhere in the controls there. I just can't remember how. It's a while since I've done it, but I know you can.
I'll track add new.
No, you're working on the same file. Yeah.
Copy from the top to the
now you
bottom.
can copy and paste into that, and you can slide the cut anywhere you like.
Yeah, yep.
I find that's very handy if you're crossfading, for instance. Because
Yes.
sometimes the bit you want to put in is a totally different volume and a totally different sort of instrumental composition. You might want to merge them together gradually.
Yeah, yeah. Or even if you wanted to record yourself doing your voiceover for thanks for coming to see our lights, stay off the lawn, don't block the driveways, blah, blah, blah. But you might want to put that over the top of a Christmas Carol sort of instrumental kind of track in the background. This is a way you could do that. So obviously when they're exactly the same volume, they're going to add on top of each other. It's going to sound horrible, but in this section, this is where you would kind of break it down a bit. I'm normally using, for my multi-track stuff, touched on yesterday, the digital audio workstation. So I'm using Ableton Live, which was that really busy, messy looking thing. But because I've been using it so long, I know what all those little buttons and knobs and stuff do. And I can do in there a lot quicker than what I would probably fumbling around in here for you in front of you today. But yeah, doing multi-track stuff is a way to substitute a section that you want to get rid of, or if you want to overdub your own vocals, or if you find an a cappella of one song and you want to overlay it over a section of another song, that's definitely the way that you would do it. And then you just sort of balance the volume level so that overall volume is not clipping, and export that as one file, and then sequence to that.
So when you do that multi-track thing, it plays the top and the bottom track at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so at the moment, this project that we're working in has got 2 audio files in it currently.
Play multiple tracks at the same time. You can mute individual tracks. If you're working on one track at a time, you can select it in solo mode. So there's a lot of control over what you're actually playing,
yep.
and also what you're exporting.
So here's another example of, whilst we did normalize this file originally, because there's sort of one peak here that's pretty much reaching 0 dB, nothing else sort of went along for the ride. This track here, though,
Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell ride. A jingle bell swing.
is actually clipping as it is. So a lot of the time, the first thing I'll do is once I put the files I'm working on, I will instantly reduce these so that I'm not hearing any of the clipping. Bring it down a couple of dB.
That actually gives you some clues as to how to do a mashup, having two songs in there at the same time.
Yep. So these two songs are going to be completely different tempos, right?
The swell time to go gliding in a one-horse sleigh.
This program does have sliding timescale and pitch shifting. What that means is basically it says stretch this out. There's two different ways you can do it. Initial and final. Okay, so that can ramp. So if both of these values are the same, it's going to do the entire file is going to be compressed or stretched out by the same ratio. But if they're two different values, it's actually going to speed up or slow down as it progressively plays, which you probably don't want to do unless you're going for a record, speeding up or slowing down kind of effect. Which, by all means, if you want to do it, do it. But the way for time stretching and stuff like that, again, I go back to Ableton Live because it's quite easy to, when you put that into that project, it analyzes the file straight away. It knows where all the beats and bars are, and you just hit a button and say warp, and it instantly lines up to the beats and the bars. And you can change the overall tempo of that project. You can slide it up and down as much as you like. The audio matches it perfectly. So it's a lot easier to do a lot of those mashups and stuff. So whenever people sort of ask me to do sort of mashups of songs or whatever and put them together, I'll always do it through there because it's a lot easier. Back in the day, before I learnt all that, again, I was using Ableton. What was I using? Fruity Loops, I think, for a while. And I would do this all manually. And I would sit there with a calculator beside the computer, and I'd go, well, that's 21 seconds, and that's this many, whatever. So if I want that to match those beats, that's 22.3 seconds, so I've got to make that 21 seconds into 22.3. That's a 13% increase, so apply 13% increase across them all, and then try and marry them up. And there's a long-winded way of doing it, but, 20 years ago, it was kind of one of the only ways that you could do it, but got it done eventually.
Yeah, that sliding tempo effect, that can be a way if you've got like two different songs and one's like a really fast tempo and one's slow, and they just don't sound right at the same tempo. You can have like slow the first song down like it's finishing, and then lead into the second song, and it doesn't sound so horrible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just quickly. Started at nothing but final tempo. What's that going to sound like? Is that quicker or longer?
Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock.
And then if you had that all lined up properly, you could, this one's obviously being a faster tempo song, that's where you could go into that one. So that's how you can do sort of a nice sort of transition rather than this song stops and this one goes. If they're different tempos, that's something you can do. And you'll notice that, so we changed the tempo, the speed of what it's going, we didn't change the pitch. Right? So if you do actually change the pitch, that's when you'll actually get the actual record speed kind of effect with it. If I say that at the end we want it to speed up, just for S and Gs.
Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell.
And Alvin's head explodes, right? So, but that might be an effect that you want, right? It could be you talking, doing a voiceover and saying, get off my lawn, and if you don't safe to each other and have a Merry Christmas, we're going to, bang. something like that. So,
or you could use it with an xLights effect, where all of your lights suddenly start lifting up or something.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I mean, yeah, this is audio editing might be a bit daunting for people, but to be honest, like it's hard to break it. So long as you've got the copy of the original file somewhere, while you're doing all this, I've mutilated that song, right? I've edited it and I've made it sound like chipmunks or whatever. But as soon as I hit close, the original file's still there and it's still going to play as per normal. And there's going to be there's no no issue changing the original file. Any other questions before we wrap up before Christmas?
Can you do mashups with this program?
You can. It'll probably be a bit more manual. This kind of layout that we're in now, this multi-track way, is the way to do it, right? Because it's effectively sort of layering stuff. Right. Is there a way to actually slide like if I wanted this section, the whole song, to actually start from this point, can I slide the audio across in here?
On your icons at the top, where you've got the one that's vertical, second one in on the bottom right. That's it.
Aha. Thank you. Right. That's what I was looking for. That's this mode's kind of the default one that I'm used to working in. So.
Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell.
So that's how you can sort of do the transitions, but mashups is effectively the same thing. If this bottom one was a vocal version of something, and this was an instrumental section of something else, that's how you could sort of do those type of things. Absolutely, yeah. I think that's about it.